Hey guys, welcome to Sports Talk with Cam. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my Week 1 recap and my predictions for Week 2. Let's get started. First off, how can we not mention Rodgers' injury? Aaron Rodgers' injury. Popped his Achilles and he's out for the season. I mean, you trade all of that for him and you're stuck with Zach Wilson now. And they're playing Dallas. I don't know about that. Now that they have Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers made them have all that hype. 'Cause he is so good, but now that he popped his Achilles, he's gone. And also, how can we not mention Jordan Whitehead's 3 interceptions? 3. And I also want to mention that on his contract, they said if he got 3 interceptions, he would get a $250,000 signing bonus. And I bet they didn't expect him to get that in one game. And also at the end of the game in overtime against the Bills, Gibson, on Hard Knocks, trying to make the team, he definitely has a spot now. 65-yard punt return for a touchdown, and to win it, you cannot make a better script. That is so good, and I'm happy for him that he did all that and he got that. So that's amazing. And then also, some of the upsets this week, Bengals versus Browns. I definitely thought that Joe Burrow would end their losing streak against the Browns, but I was wrong. Deshaun Watson didn't play amazing, but he did play good enough to beat them by 24-3. Deshaun Watson had 2 touchdowns total, 1 passing and 1 rushing. And he didn't look like Texans Deshaun, but he did look better than he did last season. And Joe Burrow only had 82 passing yards, and that's I expected him to come out and have 300 passing yards, triple that. I expected him to have triple that, and it just more than triple that. And it's just crazy that he only didn't even break 100 yards, and they lost by 21 points. That is absolutely mind-blowing. And also, Chiefs versus Lions. Chiefs fans, what happened? I don't want to put too much hate on you, but, you guys lost to the Lions. And I'm not saying the Lions are bad. I think they're actually good enough to make the playoffs this year. They should have made it last year. But, 21-10, I was expecting maybe the Lions would win, a battle out in the fourth quarter maybe, but no. Brian Branch with that pick 6 in the third quarter was so major. That put their defense on another level, and that was crazy. Multiple dropped passes by Kadarius Toney, all of their wide receivers. You could see Mahomes without Kelsey. Mahomes wasn't clicking too good with those receivers, and he just wasn't doing too well. And then also, Bucks versus Vikings. In the last video, I put a lot of hate on Baker, and I just want to say I'm sorry, Baker. You did play pretty good. I mean, he didn't ball out, but he played pretty good. 173 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and I mean, you can't hate on that. Bucks fans, you can't be mad. Even though they only won 20-17, I still think the Vikings played pretty good, even though they lost to the Bucks. Come on. Without Tom Brady, come on. But on the other side, Baker Mayfield beating Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, I was not expecting that. But at the same time, Justin Jefferson did have 150 receiving yards. No touchdowns, but still he did really well. And then the rookie debuts. Some of these I was expecting a little more. But first let's start with C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud threw for 242 yards. He got sacked 5 times and lost to the Ravens 25-9. Come on. You got to do a little better. I was expecting Houston to like at least put up like 20 points. I thought they were going to put up 20 points, but Lamar, OBJ, they were a good duo and started rocking. So I think they played really well, but CJ Stroud, I don't think they played terribly. Just you guys got to work on that offensive line. Their defensive line was getting to you, and you guys just got to do better. Next up, I have Bryce Young. And I was expecting so much more from the number 1 overall pick. Like 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a fumble? Like, what? Number 1 overall pick, you traded DJ Moore and all of that to get that in your first game? You guys lost to the Falcons. And I'm not saying the Falcons are a bad team. I'm just saying, like, I thought the Panthers were going to win by a pretty large margin. Like, at least, like this score, like 24-10. Like, just like the Falcons did to the Panthers. But they didn't. It was reversed. I just think they could have played so much better. So let's just move on to the next quarterback. Next up, I have Anthony Richardson. And I think this might have been the best one, him or CJ Stroud. He threw for 223 passing yards. He was sacked also 4 times, but he did have a touchdown, and he rushed for a touchdown. So that's 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, and he lost to the Jaguars 31-21. Either way, I think he did really good. Well, not really good, but I think he played enough that if the Jaguars didn't play really good, they could have won. And next up, of course, I got to talk about the Niners game. 30-7, Brock Purdy, 220 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Then we have Brandon Ayuk balling out, 8 receptions, 129 yards for 2 tutties. Then we got CMC with 22 carries, 152 yards, and a tutty. And I think we just played really good. Our defense only held them to 1 touchdown, and that was at the end when the half ended, and we just didn't play too good right then. But overall, we played really good. Bosa played like all of the snaps. Like, he's back, he's looking good. Fred's looking really good. Our secondary is looking really good, and I am super excited for this season for the Niners, because I think with this team they can make a Super Bowl run. Next up, I have my predictions for Week 2, and we're gonna start off on Thursday, Minnesota at Philadelphia, and this game was back and forth. But the reason I chose Philadelphia is because a lot of you are going to say, Vikings 0-2, what? They did so good last year. It's just they lost to the Bucks, and just because of that, it kind of puts me in a state, like I either choose the team that won Week 1 or the team that lost Week 1. So I did take the team that won Week 1, which is in the Eagles, and I'm not a big Jalen Hurts fan, but I do think Jalen Hurts will have a pretty good game, and the same with their defense. The defense will get a couple stops and maybe even an interception. Next up on Sunday, I have Green Bay at Atlanta. And this one is kind of weird because I take Green Bay or I obviously take Atlanta. Both did really good in their Week 1 games, and they both played average opponents. I don't want to say really good opponents. They played average opponents. But I am going with the Packers here, just because of how they performed against the Bears. And they did win by a little bit larger margin than the Falcons did against the Panthers. And I'm not saying those two teams are both really the same. I'm just going off this because I do think the Packers are just, even without Aaron Rodgers, I think they're just a little bit better than Atlanta. Next up is Las Vegas at Buffalo, and I do have Buffalo taking this one. They just have such a better roster, and Las Vegas did win last week, but I'm not so confident they're going to win this week. The Bills, where do I start? Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, that defense, and this this might be a hot take. I think Micah Hyde is a really good safety, and like not just he's just on the Bills, like their secondary and their just overall defense is super good. So I think they're gonna probably win that game by a large margin. Next up, I have Baltimore at Cincinnati, and this one I did take Cincinnati, but this could go either way. I mean, I I know that Cincinnati is the better roster, the better team, but can Lamar and Odell make an upset? I don't know. Next up, I have Seattle at Detroit, and Detroit coming off that win against Kansas City. I'm taking Detroit, and yes, I have Seattle going 0-2, and I am surprised that they lost to the Rams, but the Lions. I mean, I am a believer in them. I think Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think their defense is pretty good. Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's pretty good. I think once that team gets to their the best potential, they can make it to the NFC Championship. And I'm not saying they're going this year. I'm saying maybe in a couple years in the future they can make a Super Bowl. But I do have them winning this game. Next up, I have the Chargers at Tennessee, and this game I gotta pick the Chargers. Even though they lost to the Dolphins, I think that was like such a good game, and the Chargers could have won that. But Tennessee, they did lose to the Saints, and I think that the Chargers have a way better roster, a better quarterback situation, just a better defense. I think they're way better than the Titans, so I think they will win. Next up, I have Chicago at Tampa Bay, and I do have Tampa Bay taking this one. Just because of how Baker did last week and how they performed against the Vikings. I mean, I was not expecting them to win that time, but the fact that they did was amazing. Next up is Kansas City at Jacksonville, and I do have Kansas City taking this one. Even though they did lose to the Lions, I think they're just better than the Jaguars. The Jags did beat the Colts, but they beat the Colts. And I think Kansas City is going to come out and play a really good game and beat the Colts. And I think Mahomes will do pretty good too. Next up, I have Indianapolis at Houston. And I just want to say that I couldn't decide. So I had my mom be Houston and I was the Colts. And we rock, paper, scissors to see who would win. And my mom won, so I went with the Texans. And I wasn't mad because I was going to maybe pick the Texans anyway. But I do have CJ Stroud probably playing a better game and doing way better. Maybe even throwing for 300 yards. I'm not saying he's going to have this stud absolute game. I think he'll play better though and win. Next up, I have San Francisco at the Rams. And I think you guys know where this is going. San Fran all day. And the reason I say this is because it was 30-7 against the Steelers, and the Rams coming off a 31-13 win against the Seahawks. I mean, it's the Rams. Come on, dude. We are not gonna absolutely destroy them, but I think it's gonna be sort of like the Steelers game. I think Steelers, Rams. I think the Rams are a little better, but without Cooper Kupp, they downgrade majorly. Now they're at an average tier at their offense, where Cooper Kupp just makes it so much better. So I do have San Fran winning that game, and I have McCaffrey going off, maybe even getting 200 yards. Next up, I have the Giants at Arizona, and even though the Giants lost 0-40, how do you not score when they play their backups? That is just crazy. The Giants even started playing their backups. That's how crazy it got. And They didn't score one touchdown, one field goal. Like, what did Daniel Jones do? Nothing. Their defense did nothing. All the Cowboys' defense did to that offense was shred Daniel Jones. The offense shredded their defense. That was just a busted game, and the Cowboys literally could have won that in their sleep. But for this game, I do have the Giants coming back, and they're playing Arizona, which is, in my opinion, one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I do have them winning that game. Next up is the Jets at Dallas, and I have Dallas winning this, coming off a stellar 40-0 win. I mean, it was against the Giants, but I don't think the Giants are too bad. So do have Dallas winning this. Since Aaron Rodgers is out for the season and Zach Wilson is their new quarterback, he played at the end of the fourth quarter. That punt return for a touchdown at the end by Gibson was amazing, but I do not have them beating the Cowboys. Next up is Washington at Denver, and I have Denver winning this. Even though Washington beat the Cardinals, I think the Cardinals are not good at all. Like, what even are they? Like, I'm not trying to put too much hate on the Cardinals, but I don't think they're even close to a contender. The Commanders aren't really either, in my opinion. But, yeah, and I do have Denver winning just because, like, Broncos country, let's ride, is not going to be the reverse of that this season. I think Russ is going to have a really good game and going to connect with wide receivers. Their defense is going to play good, and they're going to get a good win. Next up, I have Miami at New England. And Miami, coming off that win, they look like a top 5 team, in my opinion. They looked really good with Tyreek and Tua. Tua for like 400-something yards. Like, oh my God. Tyreek with the receptions, the deep throws in the end zone. Like, you can't get better. And Tua played really good. And he could have had 500 yards if he just threw it up to Tyreek every time, because that is literally a cheat code. But they didn't do that, and they gave it to other players, which is good. But they literally could have destroyed the Chargers really big time. And I also have Mac Jones throwing 2 picks this game. Yes, I do not have him playing good again. He threw a pick 6 last game against Philly, and this game it's not going to be any different. I think Miami's going to come out and get a really nice win. Next up, we have 2 Monday night games this week. New Orleans at Carolina and Cleveland at Pittsburgh. But I'm going to start with the Saints at Carolina. And I do have the Saints winning this game just because Derek Carr didn't look bad. He looked pretty good, and he looked like he fit in with that offense pretty good. But I can't say the same with Bryce Young. 2 interceptions, a fumble, you cannot have that happen, and that's why. I mean, this could be a toss-up, but that's why I have the Saints winning, just for those reasons. Next up is Cleveland at Pittsburgh, and I watched a video of Myles Garrett just playing around with the Bengals at the end of the game, doing basketball moves like he's in running for Defensive Player of the Year, and he could he has a major shot. He is a monster. And now that I looked at that game and watched that game, he is an absolute beast. And I think he is just so good. And I'm not trying to go super hard on him, oh, he's the best player in the NFL. No, he's not, but he's a really good D lineman, and I think he could win Defensive Player of the Year, but Nick could too. And on the Pittsburgh side, Kenny Pickett playing the Niners didn't look too well against us, Kenny. And I don't think you're going to look too good against Cleveland either. They have a really good defense and a really good secondary with Denzel Ward and all of those players. I think they're going to not do too good on offense and maybe get a stop on defense. But Deshaun Watson, I think, will have a mediocre game and pull them to a win. Comment down below what you think about my predictions and my upsets, Rodgers' injury. Comment what you think. Make sure to like and subscribe. Peace out.